Hey, what's up YouTube? My name's Cameron Doherty here with another tech video. Now, it's been 1 year since I got my iPhone 12 Pro and with it, a MagSafe charger. Now, with the iPhone 13 lineup coming out very soon, a lot more people are going to have the opportunity to consider getting a MagSafe charger for themselves. So now that I've lived with it for a year, here's 10 things I wish I knew before I got one. Number 1. This one's pretty simple. Honestly, the MagSafe charger is just the easiest and most satisfying way to charge your iPhone. Simply just attach it with magnets and you're charging. It automatically lines up, stays on fairly well, and it's just plain simple. Number 2. Ever since the iPhone 11 lineup, and particularly with the 12 and now the 13, Apple's been really going outside the box with their color selections. And, I really fell in love with the blue color that came available with the 12 lineup, particularly with the 12 Pro like this. And the last thing I want to do is slap a case over this that will prevent me from being able to appreciate the amazing color that Apple's decided to offer. So this is the first thing that I wish I had thought about before purchasing, is that if you get a Apple case that has MagSafe built in, then you're either going to be covering up the color entirely and not being able to appreciate the beauty of it, or if you go with one of their clear cases, you're gonna have the visible ring around the main part with the logo in the back. And I just think that looks really stupid. So what I wound up doing was getting a cheap off-brand clear case that does not have the MagSafe capability built in. And what that means is that even the benefit of it is that I don't have to look at that stupid ring and I still get to appreciate the beauty of the phone, but my magnetic hold is not quite as strong. So it works with a case, but you can see it slides off without much effort here. And compared to when you don't have a case or when you have an Apple case with MagSafe built in, it really is a bummer that you have to decide between having your phone look the way you want or having MagSafe perform to its fullest potential. Number 3, the included cable on the MagSafe charger is just not long enough. It's only 3 feet long. There's only one option on Apple's website. So you're either stuck with 3 feet or you're getting a clunky extender cable to make it work. But for me, there were so many use cases where a slightly longer cable would have made this thing perfect. So one that pops into my mind is laying in bed, charging your phone and looking at your phone before you go to sleep. And in that case, what happens to a lot of people when they have a lightning cable connected is that it winds up resting on their chest or their stomach, and ultimately it winds up getting bent and frayed and eventually breaks. And what I had figured was that with the MagSafe charger, with it being able to orient itself any way and just attach with the magnet, this would solve that problem and you'd avoid having any frayed cables. But when you've only got 3 feet to work with, use cases for your bed or your couch are probably just not going to work because there's simply not going to be enough to get from the outlet to where you want to use it comfortably. And so for that reason, it's really frustrating that this is not going to work for so many of those use cases that I thought it was going to be best for. Number 4, your MagSafe charger works with non-MagSafe specific phones. However, you're probably not going to want to use it with them. See, when you have a MagSafe specific phone like mine here, when you go to apply it to the charger, it's going to find it with the magnet and automatically line it up. And now I'm charging. But because the charger is so small, when I take a non-MagSafe device like this iPhone 11, when I place it down, it's very easy to have it not lined up and have no charging happen. And now I need to move it around until I find the charging point. Obviously, it's not that big of a deal, but it can be very frustrating if you place it down and you think it's lined up, but it's really not. On top of that, you're not going to get the MagSafe speeds when you don't have a MagSafe specific device. And if you don't have it perfectly lined up, it might charge, but it might even be charging slower than the standard 5 watts that it would be getting if it's not lined up just right. So even if you have the non-MagSafe phone that you can use with it, you're probably not going to want to. Number 5, the MagSafe charger uses USB Type-C. And now, while the tech savvy among us probably already have charging bricks that are compatible with USB Type-C, Since Apple stopped sending them in the latest iPhones for the last few generations, there's probably a lot of people out there that don't have one already. So that means you're gonna have to spring for one. The Apple standard 20-watt USB-C charger runs about $20 and will do the job. However, check out my video, link in the description, about the Anker Nano, which is the same wattage, but as you can see, significantly smaller and also cheaper. So that's one consideration, to make sure that you have a USB-C specific brick in order to, first of all, just plain use your MagSafe charger. Number 6, as I mentioned, MagSafe doesn't solve the problem of working in a bed or on a couch. So really, it's best for stationary use and likely at a desk. I think that's the key use case, and that's where I use mine the most. But one other place that people might want to take them is on the go. They might want to throw it in their bag. They might want to have it on the road, in a hotel, etc. But I don't think that's what it's really useful for. See, it only can charge at 15 watts, and as I'll talk about later and in a future video, I'm not sure you're going to really see that in the real world. So it's fast, but it's not as fast as lightning. So if you're traveling, if you're on the go, I still think you want to stick with a lightning cable, and don't buy this just for a travel use. Number 7. I know I've had quite a few negatives here, but one thing that I do want to shout out and appreciate is the fact that MagSafe has a ton of potential. We've already seen a few of the accessories within the last year, but I think there's a lot more to come. We've seen some battery packs that can snap onto the back of your phone, but I think there's even more things to come. Think about an attachable ring light for creators. Think about attachable microphones with high quality audio. Think about a really high quality camera lens that you can attach right to the back. All of these things might be possible just using those magnets and using the connector. And I think that there's a large future in the ecosystem for MagSafe. Right now, it's a little bit weak, but I think that there's a ton of potential that we need to appreciate here. Number 8. MagSafe is the only way to charge your iPhone wirelessly with 15 watts of speed. And that's really important here because only MagSafe or official licensed MagSafe accessories can access that additional speed. Standard Qi wireless charging on the iPhone generally is at 5 watts or can get as high as 7.5 watts. So 15 watts is a huge jump and makes this extremely cool to use, as it really increases, or decreases rather, that charging time. However, you need to be really careful because right now, in terms of accessories that can reach that other than the standard Apple delivered item, are really few and far between. So for example, this may look like an off-brand charger, which will perform exactly the same as the Apple model, much like you would have gotten an off-brand charging cable in the past for Lightning and had no real difference. It would be very easy to look at this and think that what you're getting is a true MagSafe item that will charge at 15 watts. However, that's not the case. Here's another great example where the language with which they advertise is a little bit confusing and might mislead consumers. So you see here a bundle that includes the term 20 watts. So you might think, wow, this version of a MagSafe charger can actually charge at 20 watts. However, what they're referring to is the charging brick, which is really the same as the Anker charging brick that I have here, which I referred to before, which charges at 20 watts. But in reality, you're only going to get either the 5 or that 7.5 watts of wireless charging from this, but their advertising is a little bit confusing and not really being clear about what you're going to get. Now lastly here, you can see 3 chargers from Belkin that are officially licensed MagSafe chargers. You can see they're properly advertised with the MagSafe name and with 15 watts. And now down below here, you see the most important label, which specifically says made for MagSafe. In order to have that label, you specifically have to pass Apple's certification process in order to be a certified vendor and to enable that 15 watts of charging. So if you don't see that, then you know you're not going to get the same 15 watts that you would with the Apple Authentic charger. So this whole situation with the ecosystem is extremely confusing and very easily manipulative and very easily not getting what you think you're paying for. So keep that in mind if you plan to get anything other than the standard Apple item, and make sure that you don't wind up paying more for something that isn't going to be as good. Number 9, as we've talked about, the MagSafe charger has 15 watts of speed. So naturally, this 12-watt Apple power brick that I've had for many years, which came with an old iPad, you would expect would be nowhere close, or at least slower than the 15-watt MagSafe charger. However, that's not what I've found in my testing. And so even though it's advertised for 15 watts, and it will be faster than a standard 5 watt or 7.5 watt Qi experience, your mileage may vary. You might not wind up getting exactly what you're expecting, and you might wind up slower than just a lightning cable with a 12-watt charger. Now, I've got another video coming with a deeper dive into what I found with my tests, so get subscribed if you're interested in seeing more about that. But keep in mind that even though it says 15 watts, might not quite be there. Number 10. This is something that I wish I knew, but really that there's nothing we can do. And that's that Lightning on your iPhone, the Lightning port, is probably going away. This was a highly rumored, highly speculated item after the release of the iPhone 12 models. And we thought maybe even as early as the iPhone 13, we would see that port completely vanish and MagSafe become the new standard. That didn't happen with the iPhone 13, and I'm not sure that will even happen with the next release next year. But at some point, that Lightning cable is going to go away. And you might be expecting that they will just switch to USB-C, as many people have been wishing for several years at this point. USB-C is a superior connector. It's already on several of the iPads. They added it to the iPad mini with this release cycle. And they even in their marketing described it as better than the prior connector, which is referring to Lightning just not using its name. So Apple has admitted that USB-C is a superior connector. Everybody knows that it's a superior connector, but they refuse to put it on the iPhone. And that's because it just doesn't make economic sense for Apple. Apple will need to invest a ton of money in order to change their machining from the Lightning cable to the USB-C cable. And in doing so, they then open themselves up to an existing ecosystem that already has tons of accessories that work with USB Type-C. This means that for that money that Apple winds up spending, they don't really get much in return. People wind up going off and using the cables that they already have. While that would be great for consumers, and that's what I think everybody universally wants to happen, it's probably not what Apple's going to choose. Instead, using MagSafe, they've had a superior ability to control the market that they operate in. Remember, as I talked about, the 15-watt charging that you can only get with an Apple authentic device or with a Works with MagSafe official accessory. And based on what we've seen, there's not that many accessory makers that are willing to play ball, that are willing to follow all of Apple's rules. And ultimately, that's a good thing for them, because that means that more people are going to give them $39 rather than paying somebody else to have a slightly cheaper accessory. And so while we all want to see USB-C come to the iPhone to give faster charging in that same reliable manner where you're going to get the charging speed that you're supposed to get and not have 15 watts advertised and less than executed, I think that we're likely to see at some point that Lightning cable go away, and this truly will become what we live by. So I know that there's been a lot of negatives I've talked about here. I know there's been a few positives, but I think at the end of the day, this might be inevitable. And if you don't believe me, just remember what Apple did to your headphone jack. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. This has been a really interesting video for me to think about what I truly think after 1 year with the MagSafe charger. I know that there's a lot of negatives, there's a few positives, and there's the outlook of where do we think this is going? So if you enjoyed this video, let me know down in the comments. And remember that if you enjoy what you see, the likes are always free and the subs don't cost anything either. So I hope you'll come back for a new video in the future, and I can't wait to see you there.